Good afternoon. I'm Lynn, Mayor of the City of Fort Oglethorpe. We have a very special guest with us this afternoon, Vanita Hullander, Coroner of Catoosa County Government. Vanita, welcome to the City of Fort Oglethorpe. It's a very special moment for us to have you with us today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Tell us a little about you and what you do and how your office functions.
Well, I've been married to Eddie Hullander for 38 years. We got 2 kids, 2 grandkids. I got a grandson that's a junior in college, and grandparenting a little girl that absolutely gets everything she wants,
Yeah.
whether she knows she wants it or not.
And she should.
Yes, she should. She's special. Then coroner, I was elected in 1997, and thoroughly enjoy it. I like working with people, and you know, the first question I always get is, why would you want to do that job? And I have to explain, somebody's got to be there for the family. You know, if the person has passed away, I can't help them unless somebody caused their death, and then I speak for them. But the family always needs somebody there to help them and give them a little bit of assurance. And it's one of the worst experiences that you go through in your life, and you need somebody that's going to be a little bit compassionate and willing to take their time with you. And that's what I enjoy doing.
We hear nothing but good things about you.
Well, thank you. You can talk to my husband.
Well, I've been married for 51 years, and my wife, sometimes she doesn't hear all the good.
Well, y'all must have been babies. But no, I'm very proud of my office. I've got 3 deputies. They all have a medical background. They're good people. I've never had complaints, knock on wood, and you know, they are an extension of me. If they go on a scene, then they're an extension of me and my values. And so we all feel the same way. I've got one deputy that she goes just a little bit overboard. We had a couple from out of town that had a wreck, and or not a wreck, he had a massive heart attack. And the little woman was in her 70s, and she asked her, she says, honey, she said, where's your family? And she said, they're all way up in Illinois. And she said, well, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go for tonight? And she said, I don't know. And she said, well, I can fix that. So she loads her up and takes her home with her.
Oh my goodness.
Has the family.
Yeah.
And but she's really good, has a good attitude, and you know, all 3 of my deputies do. They'll go out of their way to help a family.
Well, and I think what she did probably says something good about you.
Well,
and your office.
I hope, but you know, it's really them, and we all feel the same way about how people should be treated.
Tell us something about the tragedy of suicide. Is it increasing, or is it becoming more and more of a problem?
It is getting worse. It's up over 33% nationwide. Thankfully, some of my medication overdoses are going down a little bit, but the suicides are going up, and there's no rhyme or reason. There's no specific cause. Some are going through a divorce. Some are, you know, there's very few that are on addicted to medications. Some just have a low self-esteem. There's just no rhyme or reason. I've had all different kinds of suicide notes and so forth, and there's nothing to explain why we're seeing this phenomenon. And it's not one gender over the other. It's both male and female. For a long time, I had more males than females, but it's not that way anymore. And what I'm thinking is, you know, what do we need to look at that we're not doing here, you know, society-wise? What are we not doing? You know, people will say, well, I'm not my brother's keeper. I understand that, but still there's services that should be in place. If people are in that bad of a mental state, you know, what are we doing as a society that might be contributing to that? You know, I've had a couple that came back from the war that were suicide. and that's extremely high. Domestic violence with the returning soldiers is extremely high. So we need to look at what are we not offering, what do we not have in place to help people when they get in that state. And suicide is something that nobody can understand, but the only way I can describe it is it's like being in a real long dark tunnel. And the further you go down that tunnel, the more narrow it gets. And you get to a point where you can't look up. You can't see where the light's at. You don't know how to get out. And, you know, for anybody to sit and say, well, I would never do anything like that, you've never been in this person's shoes. You don't know what kind of mental problems they may have had before the issue that pushed them over the edge happened. When people get extremely depressed, you don't have the normal feel-good responses from your dopamine and serotonin receptors. And without serotonin, if those levels go down, you're going to spiral. There's nothing you can do. It's kind of like being on methamphetamine. It's going to burn up all your feel-good rationalization and enjoyment in life. And when all that is gone, people will do things like suicide. And it's not just a decision that they up and decide, well, today's the day. It's just, you know, it happens.
Is there one age group that's a greater risk than others?
I've had them as young as 13 and as old as 78.
So it's spread out throughout society.
It is all spread out. I see more in the late 30s, early 40s with the men. And I've had a couple where, you know, there's a divorce and the man doesn't feel like he's going to be able to go on, and he wants to make sure that, you know, the kids have plenty to live on and so forth, and, you know, they'll do something in a rash moment thinking they're going to provide for their kids for the rest of their life. And it's just a tragic situation. So I'd like to find out, you know, what is it that we can do out here as a society. I'd like to get more education for family members, you know, to be able to recognize these signals that something is that critically wrong. You may know that they have issues, but if we could have some kind of training to where you could recognize the bullet points and say, oh, this is a lot worse than I thought it was.
And it's tragic, isn't it?
Well, it's extremely tragic, and there again, you know, I'm always looking for change, and I wish it was easier for the family members, you know, when they know they've got somebody that is in this kind of shape or they're dangerous to themselves. It's really hard to be able to get anything done legally. And I wish that wasn't as hard. I know a lot of my families that we've had the overdoses, you know, they're real upset and they'll say, well, I tried to talk to their doctor, I tried to tell them to not write all this stuff, that they were abusing it, and then they start writing more. I really think there ought to be some laws in place to protect the family and give them a little bit of clout. If they can prove beyond reasonable doubt that this person is leading to a path that can cause severe great harm, that they have a little bit more legal leeway. But there again, that's me.
Yeah. Are medical prescriptions, drug overdoses and things, prescription drugs, is that a major problem today?
It's still a major problem. It's always going to be a major problem until we can get a good definitive legal handle on this. And, you know, people think that you can just go and get a bill passed and take care of that problem. Well, you can't, because you have all these interest groups that will come and fight and fight and fight, especially if they're going to lose millions of dollars. With the prescription drugs, the state of Georgia, and I am proud of Georgia because they are getting aggressive, and some good legislation has came out. Are we going to stop it? No, but we're going to slow it down. It's not going to be as accessible. And on the flip side, now heroin has made a big comeback, and there's things that people get addicted to, and the general public thinks it went away. It doesn't go away. It's kind of like cancer. It goes in remission. You just don't hear as much about it. But there's a cheap heroin out here now that is about like a pack of cigarettes, and it's a lot cheaper than going out and paying for these, $40 pill drugs. So a lot of folks are turning to that, and we're going to see a huge population of overdoses on that, which, not everybody passes away from a drug overdose, but it does affect the system as a whole. Because, if they don't have insurance, then they're going to have to declare indigent care at the hospital. And, it just spirals down on the cost. And if they're addicted really bad, then they're going to start stealing.
Or the people that are taking prescription medication, abusing it, generally speaking, are they stealing the medication from a family member or something like that? Or
in the beginning, a lot of times they're stealing from a family member, and to me that's the most atrocious thing that you can do. I had a case several years ago, matter of fact, here in Fort Oglethorpe, where one child was stealing his grandparents' cancer pain medicine and doled it out to the other kids at school. I had one kid pass away, the child that stole it. He was on a ventilator for 24 hours, and then had two other kids that got sick. They got OxyContin poisoning. That doesn't need to be, but that's what happens when they're getting it from there. Traditionally, the prescription drugs that were on the street were coming a lot from people stealing from family members, but now you can go to all these pill mills or these doctors that are willing to write a prescription, and that's how it's getting out on the street. It's coming more from the physician offices now than it is from people stealing from the homes.
And that's real tragic. What about meth? Is meth beginning to cool off some, or is?
No, and I'm glad you brought that up. I hope they told you I'm very verbal. Meth has not went away. It's slacked off for a little while. It never went away, but now it's up on the rise again because there's so many different ways that you can make meth now. It used to, when you made meth, it was this big all-day production, take over a whole kitchen. Now they've refined it down to a 2-liter bottle, to be able to make meth.
2-liter bottle?
2-liter bottle, and it doesn't have all the chemical and explosive factors for the environment. So they're really good with that, and we've been trying to get a bill passed for years about Sudafed. Mm-hmm. They've got to have Sudafed or a component of Sudafed. And, let me say right up front, I am one of the worst allergy sufferers there is out there. I've had 3 sinus surgeries and a ton of medications. I practically live on antibiotics, but I do not mind when I go in and I have to sign for that Sudafed. That does not bother me a bit. But, there was some good legislation passed, but it didn't have enough teeth in it because, when you get legislation passed, it's going to be for the multitude, but let's not make this other faction mad too. And so there's always wiggle room. So just because people go in and sign for the Sudafed, that doesn't mean a whole lot. No. Just because you buy up to 3 packs, that don't mean a whole lot, because I don't know how many stores, there's probably about 100 right here in the city that you can go get Sudafed from, pharmacies and so forth. So if you got 10 people going in and buying all the precursors like the coffee filters and cat litter and all that stuff, and then they're buying their 3 boxes, then you can make some meth. It's not that hard. Yeah. So right now, there's a big push. You keep hearing the commercial about, I can't remember the name of the coalition, but they're trying to fool people into thinking that they need to get behind them. And it's stopmethnotmed.com. And so I'm going to send them a little thing on why the Sudafed should be stopped. And it's not that it's going to make anybody that. There is good allergy medicines out there. We don't need Sudafed. And the only way we can stop meth is to ban Sudafed. There's a lot of countries right now that will not allow Sudafed. Sudafed's not even made in the United States. So the people that support American products, should support not wanting the Sudafed in here either.
And you know, the bad thing about it is, and it all lobbyist, as a politician, lobbyist, the dollars involved, cut out Sudafed and help the problem go away.
Absolutely, because it's costing the consumers out here more to have Sudafed than what it is for people to buy it. If there was no good alternatives out there, I mean, me being an allergy sufferer, I would be up there too with a banner saying, hey, you can't take the only medicine that does me any good away. But I find it ironic and comical. We can get stuff banned, like there was an old medication that I took back years ago, and it was the only thing that worked, and it was called Seldane. It's off the market. Did I have a choice about that? No. There's several medications that are good that has been taken off the market, but Sudafed is a popular topic to cause a lot of controversy because, you know, the people that are invested in with the Sudafed, they don't want to lose that income.
What other things do you see in your office that could help us as citizens? And I've had open heart surgery and a heart attack and all kind of issues that to make citizens of Catoosa County a little healthier.
You know, of course, diet's always your big one. Exercise, and I like to throw sunshine in there. Your vitamin D, you get some through milk, but the majority of your vitamin D, you've got to have 10 or 15 minutes every day of sunshine. And you've got to have vitamin D to get your serotonin levels up so that you feel good, you feel like doing something. But we've all got so fast-paced and busy that, well, I'll start exercising tomorrow. I'll start watching what I got to eat tomorrow. You know, the First Lady, I really like what she's doing about exercise in children. And because, I mean, we're the only country that has this kind of obesity. And I'm sitting here preaching to the choir, gaining all this weight. And but there's so many things that we can do, even if you have a hereditary type disease, that just taking care of yourself can improve. But kids, there's so many more kids now that are getting put on heart medication and high blood pressure and cholesterol. Juvenile diabetes is on the rise. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of cancers. I'm concerned with our generation and then for the future generation because of all the chemicals that's going in the food. People have no clue what the pesticides and so forth that are in your food, and the top ones that are the most dangerous to consume are the ones that we don't even think about, like grapes and apples and so forth, because you can't get all the pesticides off of them. And then with the kids having these health problems with the hormones that they're putting in the cows to produce the milk faster, it's the kids have advanced 7 years in their body. Now you got a 7-year-old mind and a 14-year-old body. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. And if you'll look back on the histories of cancer and Alzheimer's, I mean, we're about the same age, and you can look back, you can remember, did I know anybody that had dementia? I remember my parents talking about somebody, but I never met them. And so you look at the chemicals that are going in our food, and then the antibiotics. There's right now there's a big figure, there's going to be a generation of babies born that are going to be antibiotic resistant because of all the antibiotics that go in chicken. You know, we have altered our food to the point wheat has mutated 7 times. It's been genetically altered 7 times. There's no such thing as real wheat anymore. It's all genetic. So for this fast-paced, get-going society, you know, we're actually killing ourselves. I
heard one time an issue about people that go to the doctor. They go because they don't feel well or because they're overweight or some reason. But they feel cheated when they get the bill if he didn't write them a prescription for some medication.
Yeah.
and at some point in time, the doc's got to stand up and say, look, go home and get healthy. We got beautiful walking trails in Fort Overton.
Absolutely.
Miles and miles and miles of them.
And the park, Stevenson Park.
Recreation is real important to us in the city of Fort Oglethorpe, and it's going to be even more and more important to us in the city. And as we get older, and I promise you, for me, I lost 20 pounds. I put 10 of it back on, and I can't get that 10 back off. And I need to get on, I've got a treadmill, and I need to get back on it. And so how do you relate the walking trails to health, especially in younger children that obesity is becoming a problem?
With the walking trails, they hold, to begin with, they hold your interest because you're looking at nature, you're breathing in fresh air, you're getting the sunshine. It makes you actually feel like you're doing something good. You'll sleep better at night because you've had the exercise and the extra oxygen to the brain. Kids are creatures that belong outside. They need to be playing outside. They don't need to be in the house all day. We've gotten to where we're using electronics to babysit our children. And, it's taken their creativity away from them because, we really believed if you took two cans and tied a string, you could talk to each other like a phone. Kids don't have that creative mind anymore, but they're ruining their eyes. And a lot of kids now are coming up with carpal tunnel syndrome because they're constantly playing these video games or texting. So we're creating health problems with electronics. And if the kids are outside and they're exposed to the sunshine, they're going to feel like walking a little bit faster. They're going to feel like, hey, I bet I can beat you down to that tree, And they'll inadvertently start getting exercise, but too, it's good family quality time. And that's where we're lacking in this country now. We've taken on so many responsibilities. Everybody's in a rush, get home, get supper cooked, get homework done, get a bath, watch TV for 30 minutes, everybody go to bed.
Time to get up and start again.
Time to get up and start again. And, one thing I had to teach myself is there is 24 hours in a day. There really is. And no matter what, I'll get it done. I'll get it done or I can fit it in. And that was the hardest thing for me to learn. And so I don't push myself wide open anymore because I know there's 24 hours in a day. But I would like to see people getting more exercise and fresh air. I think that would benefit more than anything. Plus, you can talk to your kids. And if your kids are grown, talk to your spouse. Everybody's always going on about what caused the downfall of communication. Because years ago, everybody used to come out and they'd sit in their yard under a shade tree. We didn't know anything about being hot. That's the way it was supposed to be. If you got too hot, you went down to the creek and took care of it. But people were always, somebody bring a pack of hot dogs, and next thing you knew, somebody had an onion, and then you had a weenie roast and nobody planned it. Everybody knew everybody. You knew when your kids was in somebody's yard what was going on. You knew if somebody had health problems and maybe they need somebody to check on them a little bit. And but I've heard so many different reasons, but I think the best one I ever heard was from Andy Anderson. He blames the downfall, and you stop and think about it, of communication on air conditioning. He said air conditioning is the worst thing that ever happened to anybody because he said people stay in their house now instead of going outside.
Never thought of it, but that's the truth.
He said we don't have heat tolerance anymore. We don't get out there and work our flower beds. You don't talk to your neighbors. You don't do stuff that you used to do outside. Everybody wants to be inside cool. And he said when they started shutting the doors to keep the cool in, then they were shutting out the world.
And we cut the trees down now, and we don't have the shade.
That's
we
right.
Don't get the cool
That's
breeze.
Right.
So,
whether that's true or not,
makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I remember we were the first people in our neighborhood to get an air conditioner, and I'd charge the kids to come in and see what it felt like to be cool. I didn't say that, did I?
Oh my goodness.
But anyway.
Well, I certainly appreciate you being with us today. It's been a real pleasure, and I have really gained some knowledge from you, and I would have never thought of going out and sitting under the tree, and our walking trails, for example, if you walk and talk.
Oh yes.
I mean, it's great.
Yeah, and if you suffer with depression and stuff like that, that's a great therapy for depression. Great therapy.
What has influenced your political career? Who has influenced your political career more than any single thing in your political career?
As far as somebody that I would like to, that I role model, it was Gene Lowry.
Yeah.
He was always the same. He truly believed in the word public servant. I think he would have been probate judge whether he made a dime or not. And he was always willing to help people, and he had the people first attitude. And you know, when Gene was going through his last days, I made the Team Gene page on Facebook, and it was, so many people were just wanting to communicate, you know, to express their thoughts or talk about something he did or what he meant to them. And we have 1,064 members on that page. And you know, people put pictures on there that were special to them about Gene, but Gene, you know, there was no way everybody could call to find out about Gene. There was no way that everybody could try to go to the hospital and see him or take the family away from the time that they were getting to spend with him. And, you know, everybody thought they were Gene's best friend. You know, I guarantee you my husband would fight anybody if you told him he wasn't Gene's best friend. And that's just the way he lived his life. And he was a family man, he was in church, and he was always willing to help. He didn't just say, okay, this is the way it is, this is what the law says according to this. If he could turn you around, if he felt like he could do something that would help you later in life, you know, he would go out of his way. He'd come pick you up. God knows the money that man loaned to people. You know, but that was the true public servant.
Gene was always the same, and I've known Gene for years and years and years. He was always the same. Always had time to talk to you if you call.
Oh, absolutely.
His signature is on the documents that swore me in, both terms in Fort Oglethorpe. And I knew Gene years ago, before he was magistrate judge, and before I was chairman of the county. We talked about that, and he was a very, very special individual, and just very special.
He was, and he was honest and straightforward. I mean, he would tell you like it was. He'd tell it in a way, if you got mad, that was your problem. But he, like you said, he was always the same, and I never heard him turn anybody down when they wanted to talk to him, or you know, somebody needed something. You know, he ran the probate office like he ran his personal life.
Yeah.
And he's just a good role model for public servant. And
you've got a lot of those same qualities.
Well, I hope so, but I just, you know, if to me, if there's any way that we can be remembered, it would be to be remembered like Gene Lowry.
He will be remembered.
Absolutely, because I'm telling you, there is a void in this county.
So, thank you very much for being with us and sharing your thoughts with us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm Lynn Law, Mayor of the City of Fort Oglethorpe. We'll be back next week with another topic. So stay tuned and have a great rest of the day.